welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, this is Jessica with Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. My guest today is the author of a book called Aubrey Wants to Die, which is so much fun. It is Bestow My Buffy Loving Heart, a really fun vampire story that it deals with some serious things, but it doesn't take itself like so seriously.
Yeah.
And that makes for a really fun read. So first of all, Pip Knight, welcome to virtually Syosset, New York.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about yourself and then
Yep.
a little bit about Aubrey and why she wants to die?
Okay, so I have been writing for a while now. I've written five thrillers under the name Pip Drysdale, and then we started this line of books under Pip Knight. So it's my first kind of foray into vampire fiction, which has been so much fun. I was not one of these people who loved vampires when everyone else loved them. Like I was definitely slow to come to the table, but then once I did, I was like, I am in. And so Aubrey Wants to Die follows Aubrey, who is a vampire, and she's like a really cute, romantic, like heart of gold vampire who doesn't want to be a vampire. All she wants is to be human again, but she can't be human because she's a vampire, and she can't die either, which is her second, like her sort of backup plan. Because she's tried everything in every TV show and every movie and every book, and none of them seem to work. So she's stuck here on Earth, and she's pretty miserable. But then one night she meets Jonathan, and she's convinced that he is her soulmate. And all she has to do is be with him. And then suddenly life, like eternal life, is not going to be so bad. I mean, yeah, she might only get like 80 years with him, but it's better than no years. And she's up for it, right? So when he breaks up with her, she obviously doesn't take it very well. And so she decides she's going to get him back, which is where the chaos kind of begins.
Yeah, it is super, super fun. And
Yeah.
I have to say that I enjoy vampires,
Yeah.
but I like my vampires kind of like I like my zombies in
Yeah.
the way that, like, I mean, look, I enjoyed the first two Underworld movies.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that, but I need there to be some humor in it. It
Yeah,
can't
I
take it.
loved, and it's so good with
Yeah,
vampires because you can do that. Like,
yeah,
there's so much scope for dark humor with vampires, and there's so much scope. The reason I really wanted to write about them was there's so much scope for dealing with really heavy topics, but in a fun way because there's a separation because you're speaking about another, you're talking about a different being. You're not talking about humans. So, I mean, yeah, it's hilarious.
yeah, exactly. And, like for me, when I was watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I
Yeah,
was, haha, yeah, one of the original watchers
yeah,
of that pilot that came out. I remember when the movie was in theaters.
yeah,
But, I really enjoyed just sort of the nuanced take on
yeah.
vampires. And you had all of these different archetypes that were played with, but you also had just really funny characters and just look
Thank you.
at, what it means to live forever. So
Yeah.
I really loved Aubrey. She was a really relatable character. I like that
Thank you.
she was a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
She's like eternally in her, man, how old was she when she turned? I'm trying to
She
remember.
was 22 when she was turned. So
Right.
she's like eternally 22, which
Yeah.
sounds like a good thing. Everyone thinks they want eternal youth. So I was really keen to kind of point out the detrimental parts of that, like spending 150 years under the male gaze might not be such a good time. Like
Yeah,
sounds like a good thing, maybe not such a good thing.
for
Like,
sure. But also being like eternally 22,
yeah,
there are people who have their lives figured out at 22, but for the most part, it seems like a lot of people are a hot mess at 22. A lot of people
yeah,
don't really know what they want or who they want or who they want to be. And, they
Yeah.
might start relationships that they grow out of or make a stupid choice. And
Yeah.
Aubrey, unfortunately, is
Is
just,
stuck there.
she's stuck there. And even with all
Yeah.
that she learns being 22 for a long time,
Yeah, you're never getting
yeah.
older. And also the other thing that I found quite interesting with her, and it really required me to kind of scratch the surface a little bit, because there are things that you go, okay, if you were 150, you would think this. And then I was like, but would you though? Like if you have closeted yourself away from the world continually and you've never really developed these close bonds, so you've never truly experienced close relationships and the lessons that you get with that, you would still be in a different mind space than someone who was human and had experienced 150 years, like experience, having all those things. Because a lot of our wisdom we get through the things that Aubrey won't allow herself to do. So yeah, it was really interesting writing her character and trying to make it truthful, but not like the immediate truth. You kind of look at something and you think it's going to be that way, and then you're like, I don't think it would be actually. And you start scratching the surface and actually getting deeper.
So, how did you approach the world of vampires versus how you've either read it or consumed it in the past?
What do you mean? Sorry, I don't understand properly.
Like, did you, you when you were playing with a trope that's been around for a
Yeah.
while, um, how did you feel compelled to sort of weave it uniquely into Aubrey's story? Were there things that you wanted to specifically subvert while you were writing it?
Oh, there were so many things. You see, the problem is when you started talking about a book after you've written it, you almost can't remember it, like all the different weaving, because there's so much thinking that goes on, and there's so much interweaving and so much trying to make, the different things that you're doing all line up at specific key scenes, and they all have to hit at the same place. So it's trickier than it looks when you're reading it, because hopefully it's just such an easy read and so fun. You don't see like all the inner workings of it. I think what I really wanted to do was write a character that defied expectation. So that's Aubrey. And I really wanted to, because she needs blood to live. Like that's fundamental to her, and she needs it from the vein. Actually, she tries to drink it from bags, but she needs it from the vein in order to feel well. But she refuses to do that. So it was really interesting to me to write a character who needs that but refuses to, and then talk about all the reasons why she refuses to. And also, I really wanted to talk about how when you're okay, so vampire fiction and vampire movies and vampire TV shows, there are so many different types of vampires. There are so many, they all have different powers, they all have different life views. There is no one set of world rules. So I thought, well, what would it be like if I was a vampire and I was watching these shows and I was listening to and I was like reading these books and and I had no one to tell me differently, and they were essentially telling me I was a monster the whole time. How would I internalize that? And it was all about kind of like how much of our identities, even as humans, do we create by what we are fed by fiction and movies, and how much does representation matter? And you can deal with all these things in a vampire book in a really fun, accessible way. So I suppose I was doing that.
Yeah, and I felt like you did. And one of the things I really loved was how Aubrey consumed vampire pop culture. Like she
Yeah.
knew it all. I mean, and why wouldn't
Yeah.
you? Because,
Well, you're
you
trying
are
to find
into,
answers. You're like, how? She's like, how do I die, man? Someone has to know.
but she is like she's aware.
Yeah.
And that meta aspect of it was super fun for me to read.
Yeah.
But I loved her taking a stab at interpersonal relationships, which really was the
Yeah.
heart of the book. She really
Yeah.
wants to get her ex back.
Yeah.
And at first you're in her head the whole time, right?
Yeah.
You know her backstory. You know that Jonathan was the only thing that made her feel alive
Yeah.
for a very long time.
Yeah.
But you also kind of know, like romance stories. And sometimes, like when somebody's thinking about somebody, maybe their view of that person is skewed. And I
Yeah.
really liked how you took all of that and put it into a very humanizing story about a young
Oh, thank you.
vampire.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it.
I
Yeah.
could tell you were having a lot of fun with it.
I was. I had so much fun writing this book.
But I
So much
really
fun.
like the thing is like there are things that I'd love to talk about, but I
I
don't
know, but you
want to. Yeah,
can't because
I
you don't want to
can't.
spoil the plot. I
Right.
know
But I
people always
did.
ask that.
I mean, I am curious.
Yeah,
Did Aubrey start the story for you? Like when you were sitting down to write it, was she the
yeah.
first thing that came to you? And the other characters, like the other characters that came in, uh, where did they follow?
Aubrey was definitely first for me. And then once I had, and that took a little bit of time, I think I started with that very first paragraph, the one about the fog. And then I realized that she was heartbroken. And then I realized she was standing on a platform. And then I realized she was going to try to jump in front of the train. But then, and like, so it all kind of, that part happened quite organically. That tends to be how I write my books. So they tend to start with this impulse. And then from there, I try to understand exactly what might have brought them to that point and everything. And then from there, I start thinking, well, does this character, like, I know where I want to take them. Like, I know where they start and I know where I want to take them. And I'm like, what kind of things would help them on that journey to kind of get there? And what kind of characters and what kind of plot twists and what kind of, and so part of it is functional and problem solving. And part of it is just like, what feels right. Like so much of writing is not a quantifiable thing. So much of it is just like what your gut instinct is like, oh, I wanted to do this. Oh, this will be fun. Oh, do you know what I mean? And then afterwards, you kind of go back and you try to delineate it a little bit better. But I always find when it comes to art, like talking about a book after you've written it, it sounds like you were super strategic about it and that you had this great plan. But it's really not like that. It's very chaotic. Well, for me at least. And I've learned the hard way just to trust that chaos and kind of explore it and go down whatever road it feels like the characters are pulling me and see where it takes me. And then usually push it a little further than I think I should. And then because you can always pull it back, and I feel like you need to push things a little bit. And yeah,
Yeah, I definitely hear that. And again, like I said, it really did feel like a very humanizing, organic story
but
that
thank
was
you.
being told by a heartbroken young woman who happened to be a vampire.
Yeah,
And I think that that's another reason it really worked for me. And, sort
yeah.
of my love of needing there to be it, more than just a vampire story.
Well,
It,
I really didn't want
yeah.
to do like, there's so many and they're great of these kind of like vampires against humans and vampires trying to conquer the world. And there's so many of those and they're great. They have their place, right? But I really didn't want to write that kind of story. I wanted to write a more personal story and I wanted to make it something about life and death because that's kind of what vampires are. They're like hedonism and like darkness and life and like our relationship with youth and our relationship with death and our relationship with what creates value in life. Like I really wanted to kind of explore what is it that makes life worth living, what is it that makes us stay here even when it gets really really hard, and what makes each day worth it. And when you get to the end of your life, what is it that you will look back on and think mattered the most. Yeah, so the thing with Aubrey, I think one of the reasons she wants to die at the beginning is the fact that she can't. And there's a Kafka quote, and I mean, I totally misquote it now, but it's something like the point of life is that it ends. So if your life doesn't end, and for her it doesn't, how does she find the meaning in that? And so yeah, I was really kind of like playing around with the meaning of life, but in a super fun way, which doesn't sound possible, but hopefully I've managed.
I'm curious, are you planning on returning to this particular world?
Yes, no, I'm writing a second one at the moment.
Oh my
Um,
goodness, that's so
yeah, no,
exciting. And now I
yeah,
really can't give any spoilers at all
no,
because I
totally.
don't want
Yeah.
to mess that up for you.
It's
Like,
actually so
yeah.
tricky though, writing the second one, because I'm like, how much, because you need to give you need to give some history of the first one so people who haven't read it can understand, but you also don't want to spoil plot twists from the first one. So actually, right, this is my first sequel I'm writing, and there's a trickiness to it that I really hadn't anticipated.
I do need to ask just
Mm,
because as I'd mentioned, I am a Buffy fan and I know you
yep,
you you kind of play with certain names from different things.
yep.
Is Rupert a nod to Rupert Giles? You have a
No,
Rupert.
actually,
What?
no.
No.
That
Oh my
was just
goodness.
like
Now I feel
I
super
originally.
stupid.
No, you're not at all. But I think it's so weird how stuff like that happens. Like there's so many synchronicities like that. And it might have been like I was watching and like, subliminally I picked it up. You just don't know.
Well, I loved it. I think people are going to really enjoy it. It's
Thank you.
definitely some good energy that we all need right
Yeah.
now. And it's one of my favorites of the year so far. And it is
Oh,
early
thank you.
year, but I do read a lot
Yeah.
widely. And this is
Yeah.
this is one that I am definitely going to be recommending to a lot of people.
Oh, thank you so much.
And again, it's accessible even if you're not a vampire person.
Well, that's what I really wanted to do
Yeah.
because it's like I said, I didn't used to like vampires, and then about 5 years ago, I thought I saw True Blood for the first time and fell completely in love with them. And so then I started like watching and reading everything and like fell down this total rabbit hole. And so I think with this book, what I was really keen to do was it's for vampire readers, obviously. It's for people who like vampires, so they can see like the cool different ways, like the TV shows she's watched, the books she's read and stuff, and how she has internalized those. But it's also for people who don't know that they like vampires, because I was quite keen to kind of open up a whole, I don't know, when my eyes were opened to how philosophical and cool and fun and funny vampires were, I was blown away. And I hadn't known that. And I was really keen to do that for other people. Like I really wanted readers who thought they didn't like vampires to read it and go, actually, maybe I kind of do. Maybe it's kind of fun. I mean, I even got my mother to read it, and she by the end loved it. So I was like, okay, I feel like if I can get you to like vampires, we're kind of halfway there.
Well, thank you so much for writing it. Do you have a
Yeah.
title that you're allowed to say anything
I'm
about,
not
or is it
the second
yeah,
one. I don't think I should because I haven't
no,
told anyone
then
and I
don't
might
do
get
it.
in trouble.
No, I don't want to
Like,
get you in trouble.
yeah.
I want this book to come out and not to be like,
Yeah.
don't do that again. Well, I'm really excited. Before we sign off, do you have a favorite fictional vampire or maybe like
Oh,
top?
definitely Eric Northman.
Oh, okay. Yes. Good choice.
Eric Northman from True Blood, definitely. He's like my favorite. I think he got me totally into vampires. After him, I was like, I have to watch and read everything.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was Jessica with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page podcast. My guest today was,
Pip Knight.
and we are going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.